The Women's Center in Marquette is known for its survivor services, helping women and their children in a time of need. But there's so much more that the Women's Center does as well. And joining us tonight with more insight is the Executive Director, Beth Cassidy. Beth, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we mentioned that there are more services that the Women's Center does provide. Lay out some of the services that you guys have.
Well, generally, we are a domestic violence and sexual violence agency. We have contracts with the state of Michigan for those services. So within that focus, we do serve all genders, all gender types, all religions. Our services are free, they're confidential. There's no litmus test. You don't have to come and prove that anything to us. We take you at your word for those services. So, you know, many people, because of the name the Women's Center, many of those things started in the 70s. We treat everyone. We actually have males that have been in our shelter with children too. So.
Gotcha. And you recently expanded to a second location in Ishpeming. I know that there was some confusion prior that you moved to Ishpeming, but this is your second location. Why that move?
Well, actually, we've had that location for a couple of years, and we also have another location in Gwynn that we had that office with what we call the Blueprint for Safety Project. That's with the prosecutor's office. We do that by appointment only. We opened that office in Ishpeming because there is a much higher need in that area and also at Sawyer, and so we really need to be where we're needed. Transportation is an issue, as you know, and so that's why we opened it. We opened it though during COVID, and so our planned open house at that time was canceled because the numbers, we just couldn't have it, and so we had it this time. So we're just really getting the news out that we have that office. So it seems like we just opened it, but we didn't.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And speaking of, you know, I think a lot of people saw that there was an increase in the need for help for domestic abuse survivors. What are some of the trends that you were seeing over the past couple of years, maybe even the past 10 years up here?
Well, we were very slow during COVID. It was actually very scary, but I think that's because so many people were forced to be in lockdown with their abuser. And so what we did was that we had to keep our shelter open, which we were glad to do. We were, you know, necessary personnel, but we put out messages like, you know, to neighbors, if you know that someone might be abused, here are things that you can do to help them out. We became very, very busy in June of this year, and primarily that's because you know, people were becoming vaccinated. And since that time, our services have increased greatly. Our shelter's been full. And also, though, in the past year, our sexual assault services have greatly expanded, and we've increased 200% with in numbers that we're seeing people come to us for assistance. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we now have therapists. And people need therapy that have gone through that sort of trauma.
Absolutely. Well, really quickly, Beth, before we wrap, if people need help, if people need services, we do have a QR code in the bottom of the screen for you guys at home too, but how do people get help?
Well, we think it's very simple. A lot of people don't want to get help.
Sure.
They don't, it's hard to do that. We have a toll-free number that's on our website. They can call that. We also have on our website a link where they can chat. They can always walk in and get help. We're open 24/7 at our shelter, always available for that. Reach out to a neighbor, to a church. You know, there are so many ways. If people suspect that their neighbor is in trouble, they can call us and get tips from our advocates on how they can help them do that.
Sure.
You know, so yeah, I just encourage anyone to just reach out for help.
Yeah. Well, Beth, thank you so much for your insight tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.